In the vast tapestry of ancient history, four great civilizations stood like towering pillars of human achievement, their influence stretching across continents and centuries. Each of these powerhouses, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome, dominated its era, only to crumble into dust and legend. But why did these once invincible empires fall? Let's begin in Mesopotamia. This was one of the earliest places where people settled down, built cities, and created laws. It was called the Cradle of Civilization. But what does that mean? It means that Mesopotamia was like the baby of human history. It was where everything began: writing, laws, and farming. The people of Mesopotamia lived between two great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. These rivers gave them water for their crops and helped them grow food. They built huge temples called ziggurats, where they worshiped their gods. Life was good for a long time, and they created some of the most amazing things, like the first written language, cuneiform. If they were so smart and powerful, why did they fall? One of the biggest reasons Mesopotamia fell was because of constant fighting. You see, the cities in Mesopotamia, like Babylon and Ur, always wanted more land and power. They were always at war with each other, and on top of that, their land began to suffer. The farmers used too much water to grow their crops, and the soil became salty and couldn't grow food anymore. The people were getting weaker, and their enemies from outside saw a chance to invade. Eventually, the mighty cities of Mesopotamia were conquered, and their power faded away. But what if they had worked together instead of fighting each other? Could Mesopotamia have survived longer if they had taken better care of their land? Maybe. What do you think? Share your thoughts and like the video. Now, let's travel to Egypt. Picture the Great Pyramids standing tall in the desert. Can you see them? Egypt was one of the most powerful empires in history, and it lasted for over 3,000 years. The Nile River was the heart of Egypt. It flooded every year, leaving rich soil perfect for growing crops. The Egyptians were expert builders, creating not just pyramids, but temples, statues, and tombs that still amaze us today. Pharaohs, the kings of Egypt, ruled over this great land. Some of the most famous pharaohs were Ramses II, Tutankhamun, and Cleopatra. The Egyptians believed their pharaohs were like gods on earth, and they were buried with great riches to take with them to the afterlife. If Egypt was so strong and lasted so long, what could possibly bring it down? Well, Egypt didn't fall all at once. It fell little by little. Over time, Egypt became weaker because of fights over who should be the next pharaoh. Some pharaohs weren't as strong or wise as the ones before them. And while Egypt was struggling inside, powerful enemies like the Persians, Greeks, and later the Romans attacked them from the outside. When Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, lost to the Roman Emperor Augustus, Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. It was no longer a powerful, independent kingdom. Do you think Cleopatra could have saved Egypt if things had gone differently? Now let's head over to Greece. Greece wasn't one big empire like Egypt or Mesopotamia. Instead, it was made up of many small city-states like Athens and Sparta. Each city-state had its own government and way of life. The Greeks were known for their amazing ideas in philosophy, science, and art. In fact, many of the ideas we use today, like democracy and the study of medicine, came from ancient Greece. Athens was the home of famous philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. It was also the birthplace of democracy, where citizens could vote on laws and leaders. Sparta, on the other hand, was known for its strong army. The Spartans were warriors from a young age, trained to be tough and disciplined. If Greece was so smart and full of great ideas, why did it fall? The problem with Greece was that the city-states often fought each other. The most famous war was the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta. This war weakened Greece a lot, and while they were busy fighting each other, a new power rose in the north, Macedonia. Alexander the Great, the king of Macedonia, united Greece and created one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. But after Alexander died, his empire quickly broke apart. Greece became weaker and weaker until the Romans took over. Do you think Greece could have remained strong if they had united earlier instead of fighting? Could they have built an empire as powerful as Rome? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Finally, we come to Rome, the greatest and most famous of all the ancient civilizations. Rome started as a small city in Italy, but over hundreds of years it became a huge empire, ruling over much of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. The Romans built amazing roads, aqueducts, and buildings, many of which we can still see today. Rome's military was incredibly strong, and its leaders, like Julius Caesar, were famous for their victories in battle. But Rome wasn't just about war. The Romans also gave us things like laws that protect people's rights and ideas about how governments should work. How did Rome, the most powerful empire in the world, fall? Rome's fall didn't happen overnight. It took hundreds of years. One reason was that the empire became too big to manage. There were so many people and places that the government couldn't keep control. Corruption and bad leadership also played a role. Some emperors spent more time enjoying their riches than actually leading the empire. The Roman Empire was also attacked by outside forces like the Germanic tribes, who invaded the western parts of the empire. In the year 476 AD, the last Roman emperor was overthrown, and Rome fell. The eastern part of the empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, continued for another 1,000 years, but the western half was gone. Do you think Rome could have survived if it had smaller, stronger governments or better leaders?